the hospital and emergency room, and the guy looks at it and goes, "Oh my God, it's breast cancer." And then he just literally just destroyed me. I had an operation where they literally removed all the material on both nipples on each side, removed a couple lymph nodes under my arm, performing what was considered back then almost a double mastectomy. For you to stop and recognize in your older self that your younger self was an asshole, it's a good thing to recognize. I'm not really discussed that with a lot of people. I'm burned from, my collarbone all the way down to my groin.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon here, 12 o'clock Eastern time. Welcome to the Mission Possible podcast. I'm Joseph VanFonda. I'm the CEO of the Disabled Veterans National Foundation. I'm a U.S. Marine Sergeant Major retired. I'm a wounded warrior. Today's discussion revolves around our powerful thing that I like to utilize, or say, actually. I believe that all life challenges can be managed. I'm excited to introduce our co-host is Dr. Marty Rossman. He's written many books in terms of mind, body, and spirit approaches. And Dr. Marty Rossman, welcome as well.
Thank you, Sergeant Major. It's a pleasure to see you as always and to work with you. And I really appreciate having been invited to work with the DVNF and help create this Mission Possible program that teaches skills that are aimed at helping people be more resilient and adaptable and developing skills that can help people in managing those life changes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Dr. Marty Rossman puts a lot of effort into our curriculum and so forth. So we're very happy to have him as part of the DVNF team. And I believe we have close to 3,000 registered users, and we're about a year and a half old in terms of Mission Possible. We raised, I believe, $35,000 last year in terms of Pikes Peak on fundraising for mental health and so forth, and we utilize those funds to build a wonderful program and partner with Dr. Marty Rossman. Next I'd like to introduce someone who has a profound impact of millions of lives, both through his military service and his existence, career in television, and dealing with Marines. I'm not dealing with Marines, but actually dealing with our service members and helping and being an advocacy for those individuals. Montel's name resonates with inspiration and strength. As you know, he served in the Marine Corps, I believe, right?
Marine Corps and Navy.
Exactly, and transferred into the Navy, 22 years of service. Montel, thank you for your service, brother.
Thank you so much for having me, sir.
Received numerous awards to include the Meritorious Service Medal and the Navy Achievement Medal. As you know, Montel Williams, I used to watch on TV as a young Marine and so forth. Became a household name as the host of the Montel Williams Show for 17 years. That's awesome. I wish you'd go back, by the way. It'd be nice to see you back on the YouTube there. He advocates for veterans, healthcare reform, and multiple sclerosis awareness and so forth. He's the host of Military Makeover, Operation Career and Lifetime as well. And I believe he has his own podcast, and he's always involved with dealing with new initiatives and ideas on how to support our veterans. So Montel, thank you, and we welcome you to the Mission Possible podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, sir. Absolutely, thank you.
Montel, you've done a ton of good work in so many ways, and have also faced some major life challenges that we know about, and probably some that we don't know about. You've been an inspiration to many. And I'm wondering if you would share with us for a bit, some of whatever life challenges that you feel like talking about, but mainly what you feel helped you the most in dealing with those major life challenges. Was it attitude, temperament, skills? Just what do you use? What do you go to when you're facing a challenge?
I got to tell you, one of the things that when I look back at my life, Doc, we could be here for 5 hours talking about some of the medical challenges I've had. I've had medical challenges throughout my entire life. From the time I was 18 months old, I literally reached up on a pot. At 18 months old, I reached up on a stove and pulled over a pot of boiling hot water onto my body. I'm not really discussed that with a lot of people. I'm burned from, my collarbone all the way down to my groin from that. And, I was one of the first children that they put into a hyperbaric chamber with, I can't remember what the name of the salve was that they were using, that literally, had they not done so, I probably would have lost all the skin on the upper part of my body. And my life was that way through the rest of my life. My mother used to talk about the fact that, the emergency room in Baltimore knew my name. I literally, from 18 months old, and then after I recovered from that, then at about 3.5 years old, I was running in the house with a stick in my mouth, and of course fell down and almost drove that stick to the back of my brain. And then, nicks, cuts, scrapes, you name it, stitches from every other month I was in the hospital, to the point that they knew exactly who I was. I actually, um, went through a bout of phlebitis and some other really odd, blood disorders that put me in the hospital. But then, starting when I went away to 29 Palms in the Marine Corps, I'll tell you a very, very crazy thing, man. I graduated from boot camp. Meritoriously, I got promoted to PFC, went from there to 29 Palms, where I was supposed to start communication and electronics school, but because I had been meritoriously promoted and they were a little bit behind in getting guys through the school, I ended up being shifted into an office of troop handlers. So I was like an administrative person waiting for my school. They pushed my school for 6 months. And blessedly during that time, I excelled as a troop handler and got meritoriously promoted again. And but I'll tell you a very, very strange story. Back when I was young and spry, I literally was a boxer. I boxed at welterweight and junior welterweight and super welterweight. So I kind of never really kind of got above about 148, 149 pounds, 6 foot tall. And, I, at 29 Palms, I was like, even when I remember in boot camp with the Marine Corps, my drill instructor used to come up, hit me in the chest, do a chest check, and say, dude, you need to start building up some muscle up there, because I don't know how you're going to get through life with a concave chest. So, I, like the idiot that I was, tried to pick one of the biggest guys on the base and said, dude, how do you lift weights to get your chest bigger? So, for about a 3.5 week period of time in a row, I'm in the gym trying to do bench presses almost every single day, which was stupid because I shouldn't have been overworking this muscle that way. But I was in there every day, pounding away. And honestly, what happened is, in hindsight now, we know what it was. I literally tore my pec muscle because I was working at it so hard. I had a little rip in my pec muscle, which caused inflammation. And that inflammation then seeped into the nipple areas around my chest, causing an odd type of gynecomastia. But that's what it was. And gynecomastia, for people who don't know, it's essentially a swelling of the nipples in men. And I had an overzealous Marine Corps doctor, guy who, oh my God, we found the first case of male breast cancer in the Marine Corps. And this asshole literally screwed my mouth, and will say it that way, literally
Stressed you out.
raped. It not just stressed me out, but it raped me, man. I'm telling you, and I say raping, where he actually performed a double mastectomy on my chest before he even had biopsies done on the material that he had taken out to initiate.
Really?
And this was, I had just gone through the whole process of being selected to go to Naval Academy Prep School. I had done my last interview to do that. And I go to the hospital, and I mean, I went in on a Friday because I was like, there's something wrong here. I really need to see what's going on. I couldn't even move my left arm that much to get my arm up. What it was I had a separation, very, very small, about a half an inch separation in, your muscles in your chest as three major muscles. So the upper part of it, I had a little tear. And, all I had to do was just rest and relax and put some ice on it. It would have gone down and gone away. But I go in the hospital and emergency room, and the guy looks at it and goes, oh my God, it's breast cancer. And then he just literally just destroyed me. I had an operation where they literally removed all the material. I mean, both nipples on each side, removed a couple lymph nodes under my arm, performing what was considered back then almost a double mastectomy. So I was falsely diagnosed with having breast cancer, and I never had it. And I'm telling you, it literally almost stopped me from going to the academy. However, I was able to recover enough from that after they got the biopsy back and realized it wasn't cancer. So I was still allowed to go ahead and go through the whole process. So I went out in the Marine Corps, and it's really funny because I got promoted to corporal at the Navy Annex in Annapolis right before they did a lateral transfer to take me into the Navy to become a new accession at the Naval Academy. And then from that point on, man, I got to tell you, I underwent so many really strange medical things, part of which now looking back again in hindsight was probably, had it been diagnosed correctly, was probably the beginning of my MS. But because back then MS was not a disease categorized normally and found in African American men, I was misdiagnosed. So I get all the way through the academy. About 12 weeks before graduation, the class of 1980 at the Naval Academy was the last class to receive immunization or inoculations using the gun. If you guys remember that, we used to have to stand in line. They hit you with the gun and you walk through. Well, in our class at the Naval Academy, class of 1980, the first 100 guys that went through that line got an overdose of diphtheria and typhoid, of which I was the number 6 guy that went through. I got a big bang. And it sent me to the hospital, for almost 4 weeks, in and out of the hospital, going back and forth to the doctors. I went to Walter Reed, Bethesda, Johns Hopkins, Wells Eye Clinic in Cleveland. The military's paying for all this, trying to figure out what happened, because what happened is that overdose caused a ridiculous immune response in my body. First off, I went almost completely blind in my left eye. And this is like 12 weeks before graduation from the Naval Academy. I think I'm the only person to graduate from the Naval Academy, walk across the stage, get my diploma, throw my hat in the air, and not get commissioned on that same day. I literally got commissioned as a midshipman in peacetime. And midshipman is a wartime rank other than at the Naval Academy. But I actually got commissioned as a midshipman and served as a midshipman for 6.5 months while I was on medical at the Naval Academy before they tried to figure out what they were going to do with me. Fortunately, my eyesight came back, but unfortunately, it didn't come back completely. It came back to 20/60, uncorrectable by glasses, so the Marine Corps wouldn't take me back. That's what forced me to decide between supply corps or cryptology. And of course, because I had studied Chinese at the Naval Academy, I said, no, I ain't doing a supply corps. No, I'm not ordering flour and sheets. So I went cryptology, and that's how I ended up being able to serve. But from that point forth, I had a 18-year career after that, or 16 years after that, where almost every other month I'm going to the hospital because they couldn't figure out what the devil was going on with me. What was going on with me is that the shot didn't cause MS. The shot caused a reaction in my immune system that probably triggered what was already genetically in me that would have started MS, but they couldn't figure it out. And I went almost 20 years being misdiagnosed completely. So, my career's done in the military. I didn't get diagnosed until really 2000. And when I finally got diagnosed, that was a big relief because, they didn't answer so many questions that I could not get answered by any of the doctors or staff. So, I literally, once I got that diagnosis, one of the things that I had done is that I had been working already on my show to try to figure out things that could help other people. I did a deep dive in MS, really deep dive in MS. I was traveling around the world, going to the Nobel Institute in Stockholm, Sweden, traveling to centers, UC San Francisco, a Mayo Clinic in Cleveland, going to Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles. I literally traveled the world trying to figure out one of the things that I believe in very strongly, doctor, and this is not an aspersion against doctors. I'm just saying that if doctors were gods, none of us would be sick. So doctors are human beings. They're men. They're people who study. And I determined very early on that would be the way for me to deal with this illness that everybody was telling me that I was going to be in a wheelchair in less than 5 years. It didn't happen. And why? Because I started understanding some of the nuances about, and believe me, I'm not trying to say I'm an expert or anything, but for me, I started studying the things that would make a difference in my life. 1, reduce my stress. 2, reduce my inflammation. 3, stay in the gym, stay in shape. And I changed my diet. I mean, when my diagnosis happened with MS, I'm going to tell you, I took off 20 pounds in 6 months, deliberately. Because I used to walk around at like 220. One of these guys that used to think of the bigger my muscles and more space I took up, the more of a man I was. And didn't realize that that in itself was also causing extra stress in my body.
Exactly.
So I needed to reduce that. I did so. And, you know, and then tried my best to figure out how I could share everything I learned with everybody else. And so I think the one thing that really actually helped to get me through everything in life, and like 5.5 years ago, I suffered an extreme hemorrhagic stroke, the type of stroke that normally kills 50% of the people who have it. I'm blessed to be here today only because the blood missed my brainstem by about 100th of an inch. And had it hit my brainstem, I probably would not have survived and not have been able to recover the way I had. But it didn't. And just like what I did with MS, I then started digging in as deeply as I could to stroke. What can I do to help, you know, reduce my, you know, to reduce the idea of it affecting me the same way it did. I hit the gym. I started working on a couple of medical devices and medical things that have really helped me along the way. So I guess the answer to the question, which was, what have I done to help me get through all of these phases of my life? It's been knowledge, 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 knowledge. You know, it is incumbent upon we who suffer to learn as much as we can about what we're suffering about, so that when we walk in to talk to the expert, the doctor who has, you know, infinite amount of information at his hands, I can at least give him intelligent questions and articulate exactly how I feel in ways that I know he'll be able to understand, to be able to say, well, let's try this, or maybe we got to do this, or maybe you need to back off a little bit of this. So, you know, I think knowledge is the key, and that's what we should be sharing with all our veterans, and letting them know that no matter what your plight, no matter whether or not it's pain, whether or not it's anxiety, whether or not it's depression, there are tools that we can use to get beyond it. Maybe the first tool you try doesn't work, but the second one will.
Exactly.
Maybe the second one doesn't work as well, the third one will. And, you know, you talk about it all the time, Joe, about resilience. Resilience in gaining knowledge is what is the key to our survivability for the rest of our lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's just, you know, we were always taught that as young Marines, you know, knowledge is power. You know, that's one thing that the Marine Corps taught you. They taught you the history of the Marine Corps. You know, they gave you knowledge. You know, they wanted you to feel and be part of something. You know, that esprit de corps, that spirit of unit. They built that into you. You know, at the early stages when you're on those little yellow footprints, and you got guys like me running at you. But you're absolutely right there, Montel, and that's what I wanted for DVNF and for veterans, because as an individual, been through combat, PTSD, you know my story and so forth, just, you know, trying to deal with life challenges. And I wanted something more than just medication. Not saying that the medication isn't helpful. So I wanted something, I want to learn a little bit more about myself. And that's when I was introduced to Dr. Marty Rossman. You know, and he is, you know, an expert at mind, body, and spirit. And we collaborated together and we came up with, you know, a program called Mission Possible, because we believe that, you know, everything is possible. And this could be that mission, getting you through that day, getting you through that week or that month, you know, or learning about yourself. So, and that's what we have here. You know, we have tools within the Mission Possible platform right here that that helps with resiliency, understanding who yourself, you know, only being that forward observer and really peeling on your back on who you are. You know, we go to the gym all the time, you work biceps, triceps, but do we ever sit and think about, you know, why do I absorb things? Why do I hold on to things I can't control and so forth? So, but that's, you know, and you definitely got resiliency. You know, I somewhat think we're cut from the same cloth, you know, born into, you know, poverty and growing up and trying to utilize that resiliency and weave your way through society. But, you know, I love listening to Dr. Marty Rossman. I understand the tools, you know, that I've been utilizing as well as part of the platform right here. And I love being that forward observer. I like to take a look at myself. And, you know, I always peel the onion back, you know, can really see what I've done and so forth and take ownership of that, you know.
You know, but you know, I tell you something, Joe, when you say it and you talk about it, people go, okay, yeah, I take a look at myself. No, you don't.
Exactly.
A lot of some of the people who think they take a look at themselves really don't. I'm going to tell you a very funny story. Even without even knowing what I was practicing, which was mindfulness when I was doing it, I did 3 submarine missions where it was hatch to hatch. The shortest one was 92 days. The longest one was like 106 days. And, I can't go into detail about a lot of them, but, because of the job that I did, and because of, my specialty, I used to take teams of cryptologists on the submarines. We do special missions. Mm-hmm. And, because of the type of mission, the classification of these missions, I worked directly for the captain. Mm-hmm. And the executive officer and the operations officer. I really didn't have to deal with anybody else. Every now and then WEPs, and the comms officer, because we took over the communication suite, half of it, we bring special equipment on to do that. But they were the only people I talked to. I literally had a rack. My bed was under the executive officer's bed on the submarine for the entire trip. I literally was, I had that space that was under his bed where I had to literally slide my body out, slide it, turn over, and slide back in. Because of the way the mission ran, for the first 14 days, I literally would do a lot of training for the ship personnel so that they could prepare themselves for what we were about to get into. And then from the time that we got on station to the time we left station, I literally only slept when the captain slept. If he was awake, I had to be up about a half hour before he got up. I couldn't go to bed until a half hour after he went to bed. Or normally about 2 hours after bed, because I was responsible for writing the mission record. He would go to bed. I go in the suite with the XO, keep the light on. I'm sitting there chugging away, writing down everything we did that day. And then, somebody would come by and tell me the captain set his alarm for 6 o'clock. I'm getting up at 5:30. That's how it is. And maybe it was 2 o'clock in the morning by the time I finally laid down. And some nights, I can remember going 3, 4 days, 5 days in a row, getting a total of 7 hours of sleep, 8 hours of sleep. Sometimes when you're at that kind of a pace, you can't shut this thing down. I mean, it's mm-hmm. going. So instead of allowing this just to run amok, I started practicing a mindfulness tool that, just kind of it came to me. I'm sure that's written about, and the doctor can probably confirm this. But, I decided, what? I am going to look here a while before I go to sleep. And I'm going to try to think back to the earliest memories in my life. I'm going to try to see if they're real memories or am I making them up. If they're memories, then let me play that out like a little bit of a movie. And then almost every step along the way, I would stop and evaluate why I made a decision that I made at that time, good, bad, and different. So I'm telling you, there were times when during that trip, I know that I forced memories out of myself that were probably right around from about the time that I burned myself, which was around 18 months, 19 months old. From that time on, I had memories. Those were memories I couldn't control as a child or a baby, but then I started remembering things that I did when I was in elementary school. Started remembering things I did when I was in the 5th grade, in the 6th grade. I remembered one time that I got in a fight in the 7th grade. And then, but when I remember that, I didn't just remember it and check it off and throw it away. I stopped and thought it through. Why did I get in this fight? Mm-hmm. What was the purpose of that? What value did it do for me? What good did it do for anybody else? Didn't do anything. I literally dissected my life that way on 3 submarine missions. Probably the most important things I've done in my entire life, because it made me understand who I am. What are the things that form this person? Why do I make decisions that I make today that I will tell you were based on decisions I made when I was 16 years old?
Exactly.
Because of something that happened to me back then. So, and when you do that and you play that through your brain, it starts to, number one, help you understand who you are, help you understand what motivates you and where you're going, and helps you kind of avoid some of those, one of the things when I was, in the Marine Corps, I used to think I was such a badass. Again, I'm a welterweight. I'm 6 foot tall, 145 pounds. So I'm 6 inches on anybody I had to fight. So, dude, I was walking around like popping people, like knocking them down, just wearing guys out. I probably had a record of like 21 and I was 21-0-1 in smokers. And was it because I was that great? Well, yeah, I was good, but I wasn't great. I was good, but I was so much taller than everybody else. I got away with it. I got away with a lot of stuff. I even won a brigade championship at the Naval Academy because of my boxing ability in the Marine Corps. And when I look back at that, I often thought about, I walked around with my chest all pumped up, for years, and then of course, after I won the brigade championship, it was very interesting. It was back in 1976. I was literally on the Naval Academy boxing team that was headed to the Olympics. When, I'm out running on the sidewalk, I tripped, hit a curb, fell down, and ripped my left knee apart. I had to get operated on, and I went through two surgeries. And while that was happening, I had to do something, so I started lifting a lot more weights. And I basically went from that 149-pound guy to 180 to 190 to 200. And, it changed my entire physique, changed my entire body, changed the way I actually exercised. So I was doing less road work and a little bit more weightlifting. So aerobics wasn't as big a thing. But, but because of that size, I walked around acting like I was the baddest thing on the planet. And I really wasn't. And, for you to stop and recognize in your older self that your younger self was an asshole, it's a good thing to recognize and figure out how you can't do that further. Yeah. So anyway.
No, I agree with you there. I mean, it's so easy to be institutionalized in something that you're kind of like bred into at a younger age, joining the military at 18, 19 years old and, retiring, more than 20 something years, so, you have this structured mindset, and then you leave and you transition and you try to get back into that military, I'm not military, but the civilian landscape. What was your hardest part leaving the military, Montel, transition to the civilian world and creating that new, the way you dress, the way you walk, the way you talk, the new, or trying to find who you were before, I think it's trying to find who you were before you joined the military because you're institutionalized for 20 something years. And then you got to get out, or you get out, you transition out, then you want to find out who you used to be because you lost that individual at some point. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, it does. I mean, one of the things that's so strange about my career is that when I got out, it's just so strange. I got out, I was on TEMAC for quite a long time, temporary active duty on and off, right? Because I started a program right before I got off speaking around the country at schools all over America. This is back in a time when no one was speaking in schools in this country. I'm talking about back in 1988 to 1991. I spoke in over 1,500 high schools across the country. High schools, junior high schools, colleges, community centers. I spoke all over the country. And speaking to kids and young people about negative youth trends and letting people know that education was key. And, I got sick and tired of hearing all these stories about who I was supposed to be rather than who I am. And, I set a part of mission for myself to see if I can impart some of that knowledge that I had with some other young people out there to let them know that, if you study hard, you work hard in this country, literally you can do whatever it is you want to do. You can be whoever you want to be as long as you stay focused, you stay away from some of the things that were, destroying our young people back in the early 80s and mid 80s. And so I was, for some of that time that I was speaking around the country, the military let me use my uniform. So I did it for about a year, and then I shifted over and wore, kind of a special outfit in the schools that I went to. And kids really enjoyed it. But I still had that military mindset. I'm telling you, I never lost it. And part of that is why I think it was as successful as I was in doing that around the country. In doing so, I ended up doing television shows all over the country. I did things in Chicago and Florida and DC and all over the place. That's what got Hollywood interested in Montel Williams possibly doing a talk show. So I'll never forget when I'll tell you, this is a really crazy story. I literally flew to Hollywood Christmas Eve, 1990, Sat down with two of the biggest producers in Hollywood at the time, guys who have a very, very long and storied history. One's name was Herman Russ, the other name was Freddie Fields. These two guys were two of the biggest agents in all of Hollywood, and had an illustrious career making films and stuff. I flew out and had a meeting with Freddie Fields on Christmas Eve 1990. By January 15th of 1991, I was having meetings with every one of the major syndicators in this country. By April of 1991, I signed my deal with Viacom. By May 8th, 1991, I literally shot my first show. It went on the air May 11th, and I never looked back. 17 years later, I'm still in the air.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing this for, again, you got to think about this, man. I had an office that was in Denver. I had to move my office to LA. I had to form this entire company. A television show like mine at the time had over 120 employees. And, I'm the figurehead of this. And I hired on an executive producer who, about the second week that she was working with me, she came in the office, knocked on the door, and said, "Montel, I need to talk to you." I said, "What's that?" She goes, "Look, I understand you were a lieutenant commander in the Navy. I get this. I understand you're in the Marine Corps. I get this. I was never in the Marine Corps. I was never in the Navy, and neither were any of the people that are working out there. There's something called please and thank you. Yeah. There's something called, having a little bit of softness in your voice. You're walking around here barking orders at people who don't want to understand what orders are. If you want the staff to be here in another 4 or 5 days, you need to check yourself." And I was like, wow. And I really didn't think about it, but think about it in the military, man. As a lieutenant commander, I don't say, "Could you go down the hallway and bring me that report, please?"
Exactly.
Could you go do this for me, please? Please and thank you. They were foreign words for me, man. And then so, that was a real serious gut check, because I realized at the time that, hold on a second, she's right. I spent 22 years in the military. These people didn't. They have no idea what this is. And I was literally pretty forceful. I was a pretty tough leader in that show when I first started out. But then once that was told to me, I did a serious gut check, checked myself, and said, let's back off a little bit. So that was where the transition was the hardest. But if you remember my show, I think I was the only television show on television. I had my flag in the middle of my set, my retirement flag in the middle of my set for every show that I did. And so you couldn't get away without understanding that my military background and my deportment and my demeanor was such. I'll never forget, I did a show with a whole bunch of radical, skinhead, racist, KKK, Posse Comitatus guys. Maybe one of those clowns literally took a hit out on me. And I'll never forget that show in particular. At the end of that show, I let these guys, that was one thing that I think no one can say I never did. If you came to my Montel show, I gave you your time. It was equal. You can say whatever you want, but I'm going to say whatever I want back to you. And so it was good give and take. It wasn't like I'm going to shut you down and not let you say. I let these guys do whatever the hell they want to do. They're using the N-word, they were saying all kinds of nasty shit. Bad, say anything. At the end of the show, I said, okay, I've just given you 48 minutes to talk your trash, but now I'm going to talk mine. You punks are sitting up here on the stage acting like this is your country, and not one of you ever put a uniform on your back to defend this.
Exactly.
If you're going to talk shit, put a uniform on your back, take your ass overseas, and defend this democracy that we all hold dear.
Absolutely. And that still resonates with and believe it or not, the narrative of what's being fed doesn't matter, you're left, right, in the middle, and just the media alone is just so radical, and the narrative is just like a soap opera. It's like, Who Shot JR all over again, one of those long, it's just out of control. So, how do you deal with it? You turn it off, but it's still there no matter where you go. How do you deal with the pressure of what you are advocating for and dealing with the narrative, and trying to push through that? How do you challenge this? How do you work through that, Phil?
Joe, it's hard, man. You again, gut checks. You got to check yourself. Is it about my ego, or is it about what I'm trying to put forth?
Right.
My ego is one thing. What I'm trying to put forth is the fact that it's like right now, You just nailed it. You look at the media right now, we're living in a time when division is king. There used to be a time in media when everybody in the news used to say if it bleeds, it leads. That used to be the big thing. That's why when you look at the news stories from about 1991 till 1997, 98, if it was somebody got shot, somebody got killed, somebody got blown up, that was the lead story for 6 black men every day. But now, if you look at it, if it's divisive, that's what leads.
Oh yeah.
All the news outlets, you can't have a discussion about anything when anybody acts like they agree upon anything. You always have to have this point counterpoint. They always have to be at the extreme. I right now believe that there's more that unites us than divides us. I truly believe that. I see it every day. I see it in you and my conversation. I see it in conversations that I have with people all over the country. You know, if the next, I mean, there may be a hurricane or there could be a real bad tropical depression or depression down here in Florida over the next couple of days. I'm going to guarantee you that once it's done, people come together to help those in need. They don't look and say, I'm not going to help that Spanish guy. I'm not going to help that black guy. I'm not going to help that white guy. No, they come together to help themselves because they all are suffering the same plight. That's the one thing that Americans have always been able to enjoy and overcome. Even when we were, a lot of people don't know our history. They don't understand that, what we think is divisive today is the most divisive time in America. Hell no. Are you kidding me? If you go back to the 10, 15, 20s, before World War I, remember, we had more Nazis in this country than they had in Germany. We had more communists in this country than this fledgling place called Russia. So for us to sit back and act like we've never been divided before, we have been divided. Okay. But what did? We overcame that division. We worked real hard to try to figure out how all of us who share the title American get to live together. We worked hard at that. So right now we're in the division spot again. Okay. But that divisiveness, as much as the news wants you to think that that's all it is, that's not all it is. In a heartbeat, it's like what you're doing right now, coming together to support the least of us, those who put a uniform on to defend the rest of us. I'm telling you, I bet you if we looked at the 4,000 people that are tuned into this, we'll see every ethnicity under the sun. We'll see every demographic background of America under the sun watching this, because we all agree that what unites us and holds us together is more powerful than anything that could ever divide us. The second we start letting that go, we're in trouble.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's just, it seems like the new household word for a family or a home is anxiety. Everyone has anxiety. I don't see the resiliency there. I don't see the resiliency in the young individuals today, and they're having a hard time, dealing with all life challenges because they don't understand who themselves are. They have that social media, like me, and they don't like me, and it's just out of control in terms of that. So you wonder where we're going to be in 5 years when the anxiety level is so high, suicide rates are so high, even in the civilian world, not counting, veterans.
Wait, let's make sure people understand. The suicide rate in the civilian world is higher than the suicide rate in the veteran world. Right now, suicide is like the 13th leading cause of death among all our veterans. It's the second leading cause of death for our veterans that are 45 and younger.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But we have over 120 people a day taking their lives in this country. So we have to start remembering that, unfortunately, it's not something that we just own by ourselves. Now, I get, it's going to sound, I don't want to say it negative way. Doc, help me on this, because what I'm trying to say is I do understand in some ways why a veteran can feel so depressed and so anxious that, I get it. I understand what's going on that causes them to think that finality will end this. I don't understand this in the civilian world. I don't. But our civilian world, there are people out there who, like Joe just said, you don't like me. Excuse me? That's going
Absolutely.
to make me kill myself? Again, I'm
Absolutely.
sorry. I'm
I
sorry.
mean, yeah. I know you're not making
Oh,
fun.
it's good.
I know it's a delicate. Go ahead, Dr. Marty Rossman. I know it's a delicate subject and all that, but it's a real subject.
Well, there's a question in the box that I think is good fodder for maybe thinking about this, and I don't know the answer to this. I think so in many ways when we're talking about suicidality, you're talking about depression, so uh, people lose hope, people give up, they don't see any other way out. How much of it is a chemical deal? How much of it is psychological? But Mary says, hi, Montel. It sounds like you've overcome some seriously crazy stuff. Do you have any advice for someone who just doesn't feel strong enough, has a hard time gathering the willpower to push forward? So what do you say to that when somebody's feeling they just can't do it? They don't have the juice.
Because sometimes I think you feel that way because you don't feel like you're accomplishing anything. You don't feel like you're contributing anything. And I would say to that person who doesn't feel like they have the juice, stop for a second, look in that mirror. You know what you look like. Now start looking outside of that mirror, looking at those around you whose plight may be worse than yours, those around you where your special skill could be used to help them. I have this little saying, doctor, that's really something that has driven me because I want to go back when I was telling Joe about the under the bed sleeping before I go to sleep, looking back on my life. I used to always say to myself, what did I do today that's worth talking about tomorrow? What did I do today that's worth talking about tomorrow? Back then, I used to write it down. I used to write down 3 things. And you know what I do? Well, as soon as I got up in the morning, as soon as I woke up, I would look at those things. Even when I'm standing in the bathroom, going to the bathroom, I'd hold my little piece of paper in front of my face and I read those 3 things. And guess what that does? That helps me start my day off with accomplishments, not with, oh, woe is me. I did this yesterday. I made an impact on somebody's life. So now let me see if I can do that again today. If you start to, it's like, I'm sure you've heard of the beach ball theory, right? You heard of this thing called the beach ball theory? Let me
Well,
tell
let's
you
hear
what
it.
that. Let me tell you what that is. And this is for all those who are tuning in right now. Beach balls, and they're normally 6 panels in 6 different colors. Let's say on one side of the beach ball is white, red, blue. The other side of the beach ball is orange, green, red.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm holding my beach ball at you, doctor, and here are your 3 panels that you're looking at, and you see white, green, blue. And I'm looking at red, yellow, I don't know, what is it? Red, yellow, green, or no, red, yellow, purple. Okay.
Mhm.
So if I'm looking at it this way, and I say, Doc, what do you see? You're going to say, I see white, red, blue. I'm saying, no, this beach ball is red, yellow, purple. No, it's white, red, blue. No, it's red, yellow, purple. Then I shifted just 1 panel. Now all of a sudden I'm looking at it in a different perspective. That's what we all need to do in life.
Mhm.
Have the strength to turn that ball just a little bit and look at it from someone else's perspective. Look at it from another angle. When you look at it from another angle, all of a sudden it's a whole brand new thing. Your day
Absolutely.
can be a brand new day every day if you get up and you look at it from a different angle.
Mhm.
So those out there that are just saying, "Oh, I feel so bad," no, take out a piece of paper. Think about that friend of yours that used to hang out with all the time, and write a letter to that friend, a gratitude letter. Write a gratitude letter. Say, my friend, I haven't talked to you in 12 years, but I can remember when we used to speak all the time, how it really did my heart good. And I just want you to know I miss you, and I want to say thank you so much for what you've done for me. That letter will, of course, possibly spark an answer from the person you send it to, but that's not that important. What it did was it made you focus on something good in your life, made you focus on something that impacted you and made you feel better. We can do this all the time. As easily as you can talk your way down into an abyss, we can talk our way out of that abyss. You know, the old happiness formulas of Lou Borowski and those guys.
Mhm.
As easy as it is for you to talk yourself into depression, you can, anybody watching this right now, if they just take, while I'm talking, I want them to just close their eyes, and you can hear me in the background. I'm a little annoying, but it's okay. Close your eyes, take a really deep breath, and let it out. Now, the second time you do it, I don't want you to be able to see anything inside of those closed eyes. I want that to be just a black space. Do it again and let it out. And you do it again for a third time and let it out. And then on the fourth time when you do it, I want you to think about the most beautiful thing that you can remember in your life. For some people, it might be having a baby. For other people, it might be graduating from school. For other people, it might be getting that first job. But think about that. Hold that for a second while you're breathing in and let it out. Then open your eyes. And I guarantee you, you will feel better the second you open your eyes than you did before you closed them. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of working at it. This is not something that comes by itself. We have to literally, that's what the term mindfulness means, that stop, use your mind, and think about those things that can bring you up out of the abyss rather than keep you down in it.
Yeah, that's great. We have one, the Mission Possible program is really a series of, or a suite of maybe the 7 most useful mind, body, spirit skills that I've come across in my 50 years of practice. And one of the ones we call weeding your mental garden. So it begins with kind of getting quiet, stepping back. We teach people how to be an observer of their own mind, because your mind is like a garden and there are weeds there. And if it's not been attended to, and you can observe that and you can start looking at them and say, I don't want that in my garden. And we teach a way that's similar. We teach a way of going to a beautiful place, a safe place, even a sacred space, backing up and looking at yourself, seeing what is going through your mind, developing new ways to go. So it's very much in line with what you're saying. There's another question here, Montel. Sure. It says, Montel, you rock. You're an inspiration. Thank you for your service. What you said makes a lot of sense. And I agree, this divisive stuff in the media is emphasized, but is not what we're all about in this country. What do you think was the toughest part for you of going from military to civilian life?
Again, I think it was remembering that, we in the military, stop and think about it. We got a military, active duty military of, what is it, 1.6 million? And we have, probably reserves, another 1.5 to 2 million. So it's 3 million. Less than 1% of our entire nation defends our democracy. And the toughest part for me in that immediate transition was remembering that other 99% didn't serve. They have no idea what I'm talking about. So slow down and communicate with respect, with empathy. Don't look down on anybody.
Yeah.
Recognize the fact that they have as much to contribute to the society as I do. Mm-hmm. That was what was really hard for me. But once I got that and understood that, that's what made my life a lot better.
That's a very powerful, you agree, Joe? That's a very powerful thing that you're saying. It strikes me as, because I think isolation and I'm different and I don't fit in and I don't have people to talk to is one of the big deals. But what you're saying that's so inspiring is take an action yourself by recognizing that other people do not have that experience. It's not that you're different, that you're a freak, that nobody understands you. It's like, well, of course they don't understand you. They never went through that experience. So it's on you really to soften up and to understand that people are people and that there's things that you may be able to learn to do now that you weren't even able to do before. And that's part of what we're trying to teach as well. So that's a very powerful point.
And also recognize that whether you think so or not, just because they didn't have your experience, there's something that they can teach you. There's something that's worth learning. It's worth having that conversation with that person who never served. It's worth trying to explain to them what you've gone through. I'll tell you one that always brings a tear to my eye. We did a makeover, excuse me, for one of our families. And the veteran had been injured. He lost large part of his leg, and been hit by a bullet, hit by an ID. And he was in, I can't, oh man, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank as to the name of the little area that he was in, but it was in Iraq where they were held down in a graveyard. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And while they were being held down, they were taking fire from every direction. And then as it got dark, all of a sudden the fire just started coming from everywhere. They couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And the Iraqis were literally going through little tunnels that they had made in the graveyard and popping up beside grave markers. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, how does a person even live? How does a guy, those dreams don't go away. He's laying in bed at night, man, and something's popping up at the end of the bed, something's popping up to the left, something's popping up to the right. It's like, what the, But instead of isolating, take the time to share that with a civilian who doesn't understand that. The empathy you'll get back from them is incredible, but it also allows you to release. So, the one thing that I really believe our veterans need to do is that, again, I love it, that every veteran that's out there needs to step up to the plate and do as much for our brothers and sisters as we possibly can. However, let's not think for 1 second that those who we've done it for, all of them don't appreciate it, because some of them do, and they're ready to stand by you and try to give you the help you need.
No, I believe that, definitely. I definitely believe it.
I think the vast majority of people do, but it's, I think of all the the World War II vets, the greatest and all that, who came home, and how many people say, well, my dad served, but he never talked about it. He never talked about it.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if there's a desire not to shock people, not to hurt people. I don't know if there's shame involved. I think at some level, because you've been taught and learned how to go beyond a limit that most people are taught when the military. Nobody else gets taught to kill people.
Right.
And that's what we ask you to do. And we're grateful for that, but it's something that doesn't get talked about. So going through that shield of I'm different, I'm changed, and I'll never be the same by talking to people, it's very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Well,
Joe, what do you have to say about that?
If you think about, Montel served 22 years. I've served close to 28 years. And it's the relationships you build. You build relationships. So there's a military structure, sergeant major, lieutenant colonel. I mean, gunnery sergeant, so forth. Montel knows that. And you work within that. And you don't listen to politics. You listen to your commanding officer, and whoever the president is, your commander in chief. But everyone came in for the military service for a reason, right? And they have that long career, that short career, that resiliency career, if you want to call it that, because the military builds upon that. But they also have to transition and they have to leave. Well, so they're dealing with life challenges while they're in the military, and there's so many resources, and that's what I loved about the military. There was always something for something. But, you always had a leadership involved in making sure that that individual got that resource or that something. I was part of that, and I enjoyed that. And then you got the ones that transition out, right? They transition out where they don't know how to deal with life challenges because of that structure that helped them deal with life challenges. And now they're going solo. So now they transition out, and now, we're sitting in think tanks wondering why service members are committing suicide as they get out of the military, so now you're looking from the first year to 36 months, right around the 18th month time frame is when we start seeing a rise, of that individual falling by wayside that's not dealing with life challenges because it doesn't have that structure, doesn't have that teamwork, doesn't have that brotherhood right there.
Right.
So they're out there and they have mom and dad, which they want to get back to, and their friends are on the same corner, right? And they don't understand. They're not, they don't understand. And because his mindset's different because it was so structured. But then again, he's got that monkey on his back. No one
And that monkey's on his back only because he won't stop. Got to stop for a second and recognize there's organizations like yours, Joe. I mean, there's organizations that are out there. There are people out there right now who want to help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. There's nothing wrong with
that's the thing though, Montel. You know, you can, there's more, there are so many resources out there for veterans, seriously, from homeless to housing to, you know, helping them pay electricity bill or gas bill or whatever the case is, getting them food. You know, I mean, DVNF, we have many resources, which I'm very proud of DVNF and where we're going and building and all that. And there's many others out there that we fund through our Compassionate Building Grant Program. The hardest part I hear from all our CBG grantees and individuals is, you know, we can go find them, you know, it's even harder, but getting them to the door, that's the hard part. You know, you can lead a water, but you can't, you know.
Let me tell you, I got to tell you something. This is something that I'm angry with my industry, the media industry about. You know, they can talk as much shit as they want. Excuse my mouth. They can talk as much shit as they want about, you know, thank you for your service and I support the troops.
Right.
Show me one show on any network that really deals with veterans as human beings, not just as GI Joes and
there's nothing out there right now. There's nothing out there right now. And let me tell you, this is what I'm going to do, Montel. You know, I'm going to award $10,000 to you because I want you to put it towards those homes that you're building and so forth. And then we'll talk again, you know, after the show, whatever the case is. But I'm going to award $10,000 to you. You know, use it towards applying it towards, you know, that veteran getting that home built. You know, I know there's many more and so forth.
Sure.
No, I'm right there with you. I think that every little bit helps. And if DVNF is a little bit, if Mission Possible is a little bit, we want to help.
And so, well, I got to tell you, but you know what we got to do, Joe, is you and I and maybe the doctor, let's, you know, how are we reaching people now? We're reaching them either through these little phones and, you know, through TikToks and all this stuff. I look at TikTok. Sometimes I'll scan through it for 20 minutes. I don't think I've ever seen one TikTok video saying, for veterans out there that need some help, here's where you should go. For veterans out there who want to know, who want a friend, here's where you can go.
Absolutely.
I don't turn on the 8 p.m. you know primetime lineup and see a show where the stars of the show are actors who are portraying the lives of a veteran who just came home.
Exactly.
And then showing through his life how he can go get help. You know, so we can use entertainment to provide the services that we need to provide. But, you know, I'm telling you that, you know, as much as Hollywood talks a lot of crap, they are so anti-producing programming for us that you don't even know.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on Mission Possible, Montel. I know that you and I worked on a few projects in the past and so forth, and you're always assembling teams of veterans actually to help veterans in many, many ways, many programs out there that and many ideas. And you're like a veteran entrepreneur in terms of, and I really appreciate being part of that. I really do, because that just makes me worth. I mean, I just love to give as much as I can, 100% of who I am to whoever wants to listen. And you know, I love what Dr. Marty Rossman is doing. Honestly, he's just, you know, I'm like the gas, he's like the brake. He'll slow me down. You know, decompressing still from my active duty and so forth. But I have great staff members. I have a wonderful deputy director of operations and CFO, and I'm honest with them, you know, and you know, it's always you know, please forgive me and thank you, one of those kind of things. But I learned from them. I really have. And I don't mind seeking self-improvement as I'm decompressing, as I'm going into the civilian world. Although I'm in a leadership position, I may be the boss, but I also love that feedback, and I recognize when I fall by wayside a pinch or I miss a skip and so forth and all that. But that's just bettering yourself, improving.
Right. Absolutely.
And taking that. So what you've mentioned earlier in the show, that's exactly what I do. I look at leadership in the civilian world. To me, is a different name, right? It's energy, but it's not my energy. My energy is just a little bit higher. That's how I think, but it's great energy. And they do wonderful things, and they bring a lot of wonderful things to the table. But if you just, like you said, you know, turn that soccer ball, and take a look at it at a different angle, you can learn something, not to mention it's going to help you, and I utilize my staff. I utilize you. I utilize Dr. Marty Rossman. They may not know, but I'll pick those wonderful sound bites or things that they do or how they react. I'll pull that out of that conversation or my observation, and I'll put it in my toolbox of leadership.
There you go.
So that's what I like to do. But you know what? $10,000. I'm going to send you an award letter.
Oh my goodness.
I'll
put it right into military makeover. Because we can use an extra $1,000 a house. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You just help 10 more veterans.
And I'm going to help you a little bit further on that as well, Montel. But could you do me a favor, Montel?
Sure.
I have a gentleman. He served in the Marine Corps during your time. All right. His name is Emmanuel Simmons. He owned a boxing ring. He retired 27 years, Master Sergeant, wounded warrior, Purple Heart recipient, got blown up in Beirut bombing. All right. He's a trainer, owns his own gym, trains veterans free. I mean, he's training service members, children. He's within the community, does a wonderful job. Could I give you his phone number, and when you get a chance, just say hello to him for me?
Absolutely. Let me figure out how I can write it down.
And here's something too. He's a boxer. All right.
Oh, there you go.
And he actually boxed a couple bouts right there at Madison Square Garden professional.
Oh, wow.
I think he did 3, lost 2, lost 1. But this is a man of resiliency. Emmanuel is. He's an amazing.
Joe, you have my phone number. Text his number to me, okay?
I sure will. I sure will. But if you can reach out to him today, just to say, hey, brother, I want to hear your story. You'll want to hear his story, Montel.
Sure.
You want to hear his story.
What I'm thinking of. What I'm thinking of is reach out to Mel too. Send his number to me. Reach out to Melanie also, and let's get him on my podcast. Free thinking.
Oh, wonderful. I'm telling you, his story from Beirut bombing to be professional boxing, to
maybe we'll have him on
service time in the Marine Corps and opening up a gym that builds a community. Guys,
maybe we'll have him on in the future, Joe. I know.
I'd love to. I'd love to.
Sure.
So we're at the end of our oh, go ahead.
No, I said, just get his number to me and to Mel, and I'll get him on the podcast.
All right, gentlemen. We're at the end of our time, and you're both inspirations. I want to thank you both for not only your military service, but your continuing service to the community and to the nation and to humanity. After your military service, you're really, really inspiring. Montel, thank you so much for being with us. Maybe you'll be willing to be with us again at some point. And
absolutely,
for all the people on the cast, check out our website, our Mission Possible website. There's a lot of resources there for you. And check out Montel's current work and DVNF, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you both.
Remember, all life challenges can be managed right here at Mission Possible. Thank you, Montel, and I'll be talking to you soon.
Yes,
Dr.
sir.
Rossman, always a pleasure, my brother.
Thank you, Doctor.
Joe.
Have a wonderful day, gentlemen.
Be well.